We've got an emergency call right now from Lucy Rodin from her father's basement because she's eager to talk about gymnastics. There are things happening in the Olympics. She hasn't been able to talk about them into a microphone. So Lucy joins us now from what looks like, is that wood paneling back there?
So
it is.
It's a great basement. I love a good basement, and that one is straight out of the 70s. I mean, that's amazing.
There's so much wood paneling, and my dad decided to decorate. Like, you can see it over here by hanging up more wood on the wood paneling. Like, there are different slabs of wood just hung up on the wood, and all the frames are wood, and all the furniture is wood. If there is a house fire, we are screwed.
Tell us about why it is that you're so eager to talk about all things gymnastics. Just before you came on, Izzy was asking me, do the men have to dance or fake dance in the corners?
Why don't they have to dance on floor exercise?
They should have to dance.
Thank you.
Why don't they? What is happening there?
I don't know. It's wrong. They have to prove that they have rhythm too. Why would you not want to talk about gymnastics? Team gold. That team is legendary. Simone Biles, every time I watch her, it's just like, you know you're watching history, and it's hard to even say that she's a generational talent because she's more than that. Like, I don't know what the next step is, but it's generational talent, Simone Biles.
Lucy, we didn't really get to talk about the rest of the gymnastics team yet. We've only really talked about Simone Biles today. So can you talk about some of the things that the rest of this team has gone through to get back to the top of the podium in this Olympics, specifically Suni Lee, who was kind of the star of the Tokyo Olympics?
Suni Lee, like, every time they play her story, it makes me want to cry just because to go through the things she's gone through, where she won gold at Tokyo in the all-around competition. And there was a lot of pushback to it because we all know Simone Biles opted out of that Olympics after getting the twisties. And so she had to deal with, like, horrible stuff online, which ended up being the least difficult thing she had to deal with. She goes and she's a gymnast at Auburn, wakes up one day and her face is completely swollen shut. She, like, can't breathe, gains 45 pounds in, like, 2 weeks, and finds out that she has this, like, kidney disease that they don't know if she's ever going to play gymnastics again, that she'll ever be able to compete. So she had to go through, like, insane, like, medical procedures and training to get back to be able to compete. And it started from scratch. She lost all her skills. Like, her body was still recovering. Like, 45 pounds in 2 weeks is, like, crazy. And then to do that, go all the way back to the Olympics, win the team gold, and have such an amazing performance. Like, it is remarkable what she has gone through. And, like, even outside of her health issues, she's dealt with stalkers. Like, at Auburn, she had to take online classes because she couldn't deal with just, like, the popularity on campus. Like, this girl has been through hell and back over the last 4 years, and for it to end up with a team gold is just, like, I'm just so happy for her. I'm happy for all of them.
Lucy, you know what's wild to me is, having watched gymnastics since, like I've said a couple of times now, since '84, is that these women are going to college after competing in the Olympics. And I'm wondering how much that helps. Just sort of the team environment that you're constantly in helps you overcome these types of things instead of feeling like you're an individual sport like maybe in the past.
Yeah, what's weird is this is sort of like, feels kind of like a new trend. Like, previous Olympians, they would just compete professionally. And I think there's a big difference in what NIL has brought to the space, where you're able to compete and make money. I know that Jade talked about it, how going to Oregon State and, like, having that constant, just, like, having coaching all the time, having the ability to hone her skills at maybe a smaller level, just being the collegiate stage, has helped so much. And there's the ability for these athletes to make money now. Jordan Childs goes to UCLA. Hesley Rivera's 16. She'll probably go to college. That's crazy that she's 16 years old. That actually upsets me. Like, you're not allowed to be more accomplished than me when you're 16. Like, that's just not allowed. But it's really cool to see these, like, collegiate athletes. Like, that's crazy that they are competing right now in Paris, and 3 months from now they're going to be at a frat party. That's insane.
I just saw sweep across the faces of Jessica and Mike. I'm not totally sure I have this right because I don't know what they're saying to each other, but that music does give off more Asian spa than it does Olympics.
Chris is really married to this bit because he's insistent that this is the Olympics theme. And I'm like, yeah, on that service, it was for the Beijing Olympics. Yeah. And he's like, we're in too deep. I'm like, no, there's plenty of time. No one's going to call you out on continuity if you decide, you know what, let me get something more culturally appropriate.
But it doesn't feel to me like athletic glory and gymnastics. It feels
me getting a medal right now.
It doesn't feel like a spa, though.
No, you're getting worked up for
getting
spa.
Beijing.
Spa. I mean,
can we get the rights to play the heavy metal band from the opening ceremony, Gojira? Can we get those rights and play this during our
Opening
Olympic
for Korn
segment?
this fall.
Oh.
This has deep tissue massage in it somewhere.
Where are you
Where?
getting
What?
these massages?
No,
They're
I'm
not
really-
Actually,
relaxing.
where's relax?
I got
That's
a
a
deep
great
tissue massage
question.
once at the Mandarin Oriental, and that kind of feels like what I heard there.
It feels like Epcot.
It does. There's going to be people on drums in a
Bingo.
second, and I'm rounding there to just get an egg roll in me.
This is what I enjoy about our group and all its expertise. There is no one here who has more experience with what the music would be in an Asian spa deep tissue situation.
It's not the
Then
humble
I
brag
do.
that you think it is.
Not certain you should be discussing that.
I am a person with
Robert Kraft with like a word.
bona fides here. Lucy, are you excited about other things, or is it just gymnastics? Are you excited about the Chinese swimming meat scandal?
I focus on gymnastics. I haven't been able to watch the Olympics. I've been kind of busy with personal things in my life that are none of your business. But now that I'm back, I got the gold zone. I'm ready to go. I turned it off so it wouldn't ruin the beautiful wood paneling view. I'm really into wrestling, which is kind of weird, and I'm really excited. That starts in a couple days.
But for those that are following the tainted meat scandal of 2024, apparently these Chinese swimmers who have done very, very well in the pool, especially this year, are testing positive for a contaminant that they are claiming is in meat, but the levels don't necessarily match up. The Olympics, it seems like if you're looking to game the system, this is the year to do it, because there's all sorts of... Usually the Olympics sometimes outsource as a governing body over specific sports, and that's not happening. So you're having all sorts of different things happen in the world of boxing and whatnot.
And the idea that you can come up with an excuse and all of a sudden they say, okay.
I'm familiar
Like,
with that in baseball. Someone used tainted meat not too long ago.
But you could they offered them tainted meat to test. Hey, look, we test this tainted meat. It's clear that we're not cheating. It's nonsense. Like, to me, and especially in the Olympic sports, and it's happened with the USA, when it sniffs of cheating, it's usually cheating. I mean, do you remember... There used to be an East Germany and a West Germany. That was crazy.
If it smells like cheating, it's cheating?
The East Germans were always consistently thought to be cheating, and it turned out, yeah, they were. And so Americans have probably cheated in the past, certainly, and these Chinese swimmers, if they're testing positive and they're just letting an excuse be the reason why they continue to compete, I think it's nonsense, too.
But Mike is saying if you're going to cheat, this would be the year to cheat. It seems like a lot of people, sleeping at the steering wheel,
What they're testing for affects the heart in some way.
That means you're sleeping while you're driving, right?
I don't know if I think at the heart of it, no pun intended, it's supposed to improve your cardiovascular stamina.
Yeah, just a coincidence that was in the burger I had.
You know when you guys were on Soarin' at Epcot? This is when you fly over the Great Wall of China. This is the music that's playing in the background.
I think it might legitimately be.
Juju, put it on the poll, please. When it sniffs like cheating, is it usually cheating?
I've noticed Izzy keeps going back to the well on his Olympics nostalgia growing up in the 80s. Lucy, since you are considerably younger than most of us, what are your sort of nostalgic Olympic memories that you think about when you watch the Olympics every 4 years?
So I used to have to spend the summer in Iowa every year, which was the worst summer vacation ever. But it was pretty cool in 2008 because Shawn Johnson was representing the USA on the women's gymnastics team, and Lolo Jones, I don't know, she plays every sport, but she was representing the USA in whatever she was doing. And we got to go to their presser in Iowa and their meet and greet, which was super cool. So it was really awesome to get to meet them and see them. And I was a kid at the time. And then to see them perform was really, really cool. So the 2008 Beijing Olympics, I was 10.
I was hoping you were going to say my favorite Olympic nostalgia was when they couldn't do the Olympics.
You're just that young.
They did it in Tokyo a year later.
When she used the phrase that is part of the parlance for what it is that we were talking about with the twisties, it sounds so much nicer than it actually is.
Yes.
The twisties seem terrifying, but they have such a nice name. It seems so gentle.
They got into that in the
comparatively.
documentary.
It sounds cute, like a little dance. Oh, I'm doing the twisties.
Doesn't sound so cute if you have balls.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
hurts.
Jessica, thank you for the pantomime visual image of what it would look like
Twisty!
if somebody did the
Do you ever get up and
twisties.
you're like, is it inside me even more than you? Because those are usually outside.
Yeah,
Happened
You want
one-
pull-ups.
every day.
So you are not, Lucy. You are not with Greg Cody, who is saying that our United States men's gymnastics team celebrated way too much for winning a bronze medal and finishing in third place.
Greg Cody respectfully will never get near a bronze medal in his lifetime. Like, that's crazy to me. Why would you not be happy if you went to the Olympics? The USA men's gymnastics team has historically struggled at the Olympics. Bronze is amazing for them. I don't know why we can't just be happy for each other.
Yeah, you said that so angrily.
Well, I'm sorry that was the best day of their life, but it wasn't good enough for Greg Cody.
With all due respect, they're celebrating third place. I mean, that's ridiculous. It is, Lucy. Come on, third place. No one celebrates third place.
Absolutely not. If you have never reached that stage before, like, you should be able to celebrate it. Like, I didn't see a lot of people complaining about the Brazilian women's gymnastics team celebrating their silver. I think they were bronze. Their bronze yesterday, because that is a team that hasn't had success in women's gymnastics before, doesn't have a country that really, like, puts a lot of financial support behind women's gymnastics, and no one was angry at them for celebrating.
Well, you don't know. You don't know that.
The last time
there's a Brazilian Greg Cody.
Yeah. Portuguese Greg
Doing an afternoon drive somewhere. I mean,
the last time they medaled in that team event, this music made sense.
You have no proof that there's not a Greg Cody somewhere on radio in Brazil spitting in Portuguese that those losers shouldn't be celebrating.
The executive producer of his radio.
I don't want to know
great
him.
take. I mean,
I had a hard time yesterday trying to get something off the ground that I know I'll be able to get off the ground now, because we derailed when I talked about it, mentioning that Connor Stallions is going to be doing a documentary on Netflix this month, and it just derailed into Jessica's grandma getting the Italian stallion as a stripper for her 50th birthday. But are you?
I'm always in the penalty box for the good conversation.
Holy shit!
Are you intrigued by a Connor Stallions documentary on Netflix coming out later this month?
Yes. The Netflix Untold series has been, like, it's crazy hit or miss. Like, they have had some really, really good, like, I loved their Manti Te'o piece they did, and then their Florida Gators one I hated with every fiber of my being. It was so bad. So I don't necessarily I'm not expecting anything out of it, but I believe this will be the first time he's spoken about this whole incident. I think the only thing he's been doing is cameos. So I'm excited to see a non-cameo interview of Connor Stallions. I don't know what information is going to come out that we don't already know, but I'm intrigued.
What are you most excited about upcoming this season, now that we've figured out how it is that you're going to do your job so that you can have better resources and better infrastructure around what you're doing?
This is just a really weird season around the fact that these crazy matchups are now conference matchups. So, like, the possibility of going to see Ohio State at Oregon is really exciting, or Texas hosting Georgia. The amount of games you have to pull from this year is a lot better in previous seasons, where, like, I feel like in the college football year, you have 2 to 3 weeks every season where you just kind of had, like, a dud week. Like, there aren't really great competitive matchups. That weird week in November where the SEC is playing, like, FCS schools, you're going to avoid that this year. So I'm excited that we're going to have good football every single weekend.
Lucy, look how happy she is just thinking about it. Yep. She is radiant.
We are 4 Saturdays away from a midnight Eastern Hawaii home game, Lucy. How about that?
I'm so excited.
I know.
I have my little college football magazine here, and I've been reading it. And
the Phil Steele book.
It's so good.
I've been reading it too.
I'm in a bad place because he's like, Iowa's making it to the playoff, and I can't think like that.
Wow.
I'm sick. I'm under the weather. Iowa's making the playoff.
Lucy, before you go, what was the highlight of babysitting Willow last week?
Oh, that's good. I liked the ice cream walks. I ate a lot of ice cream. So did she. So I think those were probably my favorite, because eventually, like, you're just sitting in front of Salt and Straw and you're just trying to pull, and you're like, I have to give up. I just have to get ice cream. So I had a lot of ice cream. So did she.
She was a little heavy when we got back.
Yeah, for sure.
Minor
But
complaints.
she was happy.
See you later, Lucy. You were really a bad influence on Willow. Willow was being, she was just being stubborn, and she just
I resent that.
sit in front of ice cream
fun aunt.
places. Thank you, Lucy. Good talking to you. I don't know if Stugatz has seen a photograph that was going viral yesterday for obvious reasons. And at the risk of alienating the audio audience, I will just tell you to please just search wherever it is that you get your social media information, Wemby photograph or Wembanyama photograph. Stugatz, have you seen the photograph of Wembanyama? I believe this is what he's going to do to the entire NBA in 3 or 4 years. I assume
Shrink them?
I assume that Wembanyama is going to keep growing. I don't think he is done growing. But that is a basketball player has his face in Wembanyama's thigh, like legitimately where Wembanyama's thigh is.
That would have to jump to kiss Victor's belly button.
That player cannot jump up and get higher than Wembanyama's head. I don't believe. No.
Did you see him getting stuffed at the rim? It happened to Rudy Gobert
Wemby?
too. Yeah,
Wemby did?
and Gobert did
Fake
too.
news.
By who?
They have Wemby still camping out at the perimeter, which is interesting. An interesting way to use him, especially against Japan when Hachimura went out. They had such a size advantage, but they just stayed to their game. It's odd.
I did notice, like, in basketball, in international basketball, you really notice when someone is below, like, the average height of the other team. But in gymnastics, it's the opposite. If you see someone and you're like, wow, that woman looks really tall, and then you Google it and they're 5'1".
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
Look at those long arms,
crazy.
5'3".
Did anybody watch the 3x3 basketball
Yes.
last night with
I couldn't.
Jimmer? Yeah. So there's another Barry brother. Had no idea. Yeah. Canyon. Yeah. Canyon is playing on this team. Apparently, there are Miami ties to it, but Jimmer was there, and there was a moment. It was a rough go. Jimmer had a clear path to a finger roll, and he hit the bottom of the rim. And it got me thinking, what if our best athletes played basketball instead of basketball?
It is strange, right? Because on the women's side, there are WNBA players, and I'm always going to say 3v3. I don't know where X came from. It's 3v3. X just stole it.
No, it's 3x3.
No, it's 3v3.
It's
That's
3x3.
3 by 3.
It's 3 on
Yeah,
3.
right.
The
It's
commentator
weird.
he wanted to call it 3x3, so I got to do it.
It's 3x3.
But no, I just don't understand why we're using that level of player. Why can't we get other level of players?
We talked about this during the postgame show yesterday. So the U.S. women's team only has 2 current WNBA players. They have one college player and one player who was sort of in the W and now she's not anymore, but she does like specifically 3x3 events. And so from what I understand, to select the 3x3 team, you have to have players that have played in a certain amount of like qualifying events. And so in the US, like our best basketball players are obviously players that want to play 5-on-5 basketball and they want to be on 5-on-5 Olympic rosters. So that's where most of the talent pool is focusing on. So it's like you're not getting your like 12 best
Do we need
5-on-5
that, we just
players
need
and then
better
your
than Jimmer Fredette. Like,
Your
that's
next-
what we need.
Why couldn't we get like the big 3, the Ice Cube League? Those guys would qualify, right?
I don't know if that would qualify for it. I think the international like 3-on-3 or 3x3, excuse me, 3x3 tournaments have like a different point system. This is all like Olympic qualifier stuff has like its own specific kind of route for doing it. But what I was saying about the women's team is that they're not taking like your best 5-on-5 team plus subs and then your next 4 best players are playing 3x3. That wasn't how they chose the team, or else the team would probably look a little bit different.
Izzy, I feel like you'd agree with me here. I don't like the 3-on-3 when you don't check up the ball.
X.
I need a check.
They check.
No.
I saw Jimmer check.
I see a lot of getting the rebound and then going out to the 3-point line when somebody's already made a basket.
Take backs.
Those are takebacks.
Yeah,
So,
take it back,
no, they
Tony.
check.
No,
I saw
guys.
Jimmer Fredette check.
I know, but it's not check on every play. Like, if
Yeah.
the ball goes into the hoop, we need to go check it back up.
Yes.
You can't get the ball out of the hoop and then start playing again. That tells me you've never played 3-on-3.
I'm with Mike. I just need a single check and I'm good. It feels like a game to
No.
me. A
One
couple of checks here and there.
One
you
of the
know?
underrated parts of that cable guy scene was when Chip actually checks the ball. Looks good.
I
It
actually
makes it feel official, a check. That's
I
all.
saw last night, believe it or not, I was, this is funny that you mentioned Jim Carrey, his first ever appearance on national television, which was 10 minutes long, the amount of confidence and talent that he had the first time he was on Johnny Carson and Letterman, where he's just doing impersonations. It's a 10-minute set of impersonations. I couldn't believe how talented it was right out of the box.
Were you moved again emotionally or what happened there? I mean, Hell of a night you had.
Earlier this week, I saw one of those anniversary things on social media that sent a chill down my spine.
Jeez.
The Mask turns 30.
Oh, wow.
That one hurt.
I need more chills in my life. You guys get all these chills.
Dan's got them all right
Football's coming.
You just said Hawaii's playing a midnight game. If that didn't do it, nothing will.
I have an idea. Be a woman of average weight and height and go into an office.
Juju, put it on the poll, please. 3x3, 3v3, or 3-on-3.
3 Twitter 3. Put that too.
And also, when you mention the optics or the optical illusions of people seeming to be bigger or smaller than they are, this happens to me all the time in the movies. Happened to me a couple of days ago with Daniel Craig in a scene. I was like, oh my God, he's small. He's tiny small. 007 is tiny small. This happens to you guys how often watching the movies where you're surprised? Usually they do a good job of hiding when their star is small by surrounding them with small people.
Yeah,
so,
we're doing like Apple Crates, which is like a Tom Cruise, Tony Scott trick.
Well, De Niro also wears like
Platform
he wears
shoes.
platform shoes.
I got the reverse of that when I was in Beijing for the Beijing Games, and Vince Vaughn was on the escalator going the opposite direction.
No, he's
and
big.
he's tall.
Yeah.
And so I was I don't remember in the movies him being or stand out tall, but he was stand out tall here.
When I was younger, I went to like a Planet Hollywood event that Arnold Schwarzenegger was attending, and I was like 8 years old, and I remember thinking, "Where's the rest of him?"
Because you just
Because
assuming
those
that he's a giant.
those action
Of course,
stars were
of
larger
course.
than life, and Stallone also really tiny.
Tiny,
If you see Stallone standing next to Thunderlips in that ring, like Hogan's a big guy, but that was comical.
But he's got a big heart. I mean, Stallone.
Statham
You should
short.
get that checked out.
Tiny guy.
You guys saw Hulk Hogan or Thunderlips or Terry Bollea. He was with Dan Campbell at Detroit Lions.
Makes sense.
Practice.
Yeah.
And he did it right after the Republican National Convention. So Dan Campbell caught a good amount of heat for just allowing Hulk Hogan to do wrestling promo
I don't
there.
understand giving Dan Campbell heat for that. That is pitch perfect.
Is that what we're doing now, really? I mean,
All right, let Terry Bollea show up to Lions camp.
it's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I'd say I'd love to be in that room, but I think, can you OD on testosterone?
It'd be a lot if Dan Campbell is.
We'll find out in the Olympics, I guess, when the testing's all done.
Well, what's going on with that? We're going to interview Mike Schmidt here about this Chinese swimming.
You got me excited.
Scandal. Yeah, wrong Mike
There's a
Schmidt.
couple
Those Michael Jack Schmitz. I mean,
Pulitzer Prize winner, not a Hall of Fame third baseman.
Yeah, I don't know how much he can explain, because there's a big boxing controversy, and you have to be super careful in what you're reading and what's getting aggregated, because there are female boxers that wouldn't be female boxers under the previous testing, but they are not transgender. They are not arguing. They're just testing for higher levels of testosterone, and it's being reported that this is unsafe. And I know we're all learning this on the fly. I think combat sports, because of biology, is a pretty good line in the sand to draw. But there is so much misinformation going on about this specific testing regimen. And I'm curious to know what's going on here.
We're going to get some legitimate expertise on this from a Pulitzer Prize winner who disappoints Stugatz by being Mike Schmidt, not the Hall of Fame.
I was about to say what it gets. I mean,
Third baseman. But speaking of being disappointed, I wanted to ask you guys how I'm supposed to be feeling about an interaction that I had this weekend with ostensibly a fan who was ostensibly complimenting me. Are you ready? Because I don't feel like it ended up actually being a compliment. So I walk in to a store, a furniture store, and there's only one person there working. And the person's face lights up with delight upon seeing me. And so I hold out my hand, and the first words the person says to me is, "Hi, I was a fan."
Didn't follow you to DraftKings Network, huh? Just fell off the earth after ESPN there.
How am I supposed to feel about that? All of it, because it was...
At least they were a fan at one point of your career.
That's correct. That is correct.
So there's two ways that could have gone. Like, it could have been, A, I stopped following you, I was a big fan, or, ooh, you ticked me off at some point, no longer a fan of yours. But I was.
But I get this all the time as well. Where are you guys now?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't what happened, though. That what ended up happening is he explained that he had left sports.
Too
Which
bad
was
for him.
Which is an excellent pivot.
Just leave sports.
So does
just
Stugotz.
choose at 40 years old, I'm out.
How do we feel about jerk seasoning?
Not a fan.
Love
neither.
jerk.
No.
I love it.
Out of my life, jerk.
All of it.
Yeah, not a fan.
You guys sweat when you eat spicy food?
It's like an annoying
No.
spicy.
Depends how spicy it is.
It's like an
I don't.
annoying spicy.
There's
jerk
a
is.
spice. I don't know what it is.
It's spicy with a tang. Is
If I
Right.
smell
really
it,
what
I
it
sweat.
is. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
If you get like really hot wings, I'll start getting the brow sweat a little bit. I can't wear glasses when I eat spicy because then my glasses fog up.
Definitely not gonna say the
Charlotte
first
gets the
word.
brow sweat real bad.
I get it in the back of my neck.
On a level of jerk, Mike, how jerk was that chicken?
I think Colin Jost.
Got it. Yeah.
I need an Aaron Rodgers
Really
level
jerky, huh?
or I'm not eating it.
Give me like Billy Gill.
Really?
Just
For Steph
mild.
Curry. Yeah.
Where does that rate on the Romo scale?
Romo is. Oh, that's Greg Cody level. My dad loves some Tony Romo jerk.
Where's Axl Rose? Axl Rose is like the Carolina Ghost Reaper. Hey, Axl, Hetfield got burned. Just go out there, play a little earlier. No, in fact, 2 hours late, 40 minutes shorter. Ew.
We're going to have Michael Schmidt on with us in a little while.
I've never been so prepared for an interview. I mean, this is very exciting. Talking about hot corner. I mean,
It is not that Michael Schmidt. It is the Pulitzer Prize winning Michael Schmidt who covered baseball for a while.
He had
terrible
notes, Dan.
rip.
He had notes.
It
the
was
Tin
so
metal
Phillies
rip.
have lost 7-10.
Let me explain to you what just happened there, Jessica. I waited because he held up the paper. He had the joke. He was going to make a ripping sound,
Do better.
and his left arm, he really did heard it
Butterfly.
doing the butterfly
again.
stroke
Do it again.
earlier in the show.
Redemption.
So much better, but you are ripping
No,
it
that was bad.
Fast,
Now I'm
right?
going to rip this paper.
Well, wait a minute. Jessica, you're saying it's bad. The ripping of the paper, actual ripping of it, is terrible. He's ripping off a corner of it. The second one sounded better
Okay.
for audio purposes than the first one, but both of them were less than what they could have been. I don't know why it is you couldn't just rip it right down the middle.
Want me to try again?
Yes.
All right, hold on.
You can keep trying it. Do me this favor, okay? Since you've now lost your ability to ask him questions about being a third baseman for the Phillies in
What
the
happened to the mustache?
1980s, can you just, throughout the interview, your only contribution to all of this can be just to occasionally rip papers, all right? Michael Schmidt... You're so bad at it. Why are you so
Always
bad
just the
at
corner.
this? You know what? Let's do this around the room. Show him who can be better. Michael Schmidt, I will tell people, he was covering the Mets and the Yankees when he was 25 years old during the steroid era. He has won a couple of Pulitzer Prizes because he might be the best investigative reporter in America. He's a reason to keep buying newspapers. His book is Donald Trump versus the United States, Inside the Struggle to Stop a President. And he's got this story, which seems to be the biggest scandal at the Olympics. I'm not really sure why he's covering the Chinese national team right now. Perhaps we will find out together why he's covering the Chinese national team. Michael, thank you. Go ahead. Better. At the Olympics. Thank you for joining us, Michael. Can you please tell us why it is and how it is that you came to be covering this story?
The best job that I ever had in journalism was covering off the field legal issues and drugs in sports earlier in my career. And I always wanted to get back to it. And when I found out several months ago about what had happened in China around these positive tests, it was just too compelling of a story. And we've got a lot going on. I work for the Washington Bureau of the Times. We've obviously got a presidential race that we need to be putting a lot of our time and energy into, but we thought that this story was really important. And I've always wanted to get back to covering drugs in sports. And that's how I found myself in the middle of this.
Why was that the best job you've ever had in journalism?
I think that the thing about corruption in sports is that there's a lot of it, and there's different dynamics to it that make it more compelling to cover. In Washington, where I do my usual day-to-day job, there's two parties breathing down each other's back. There's inspectors generals, there's the FBI, there's a lot of oversight of what's going on. And most people in Washington went there because they thought that they could do something of good. At least most people, at least in sports, people are there for a range of different reasons, and there's far less oversight. And the media is much more focused on covering the day-to-day on the field stuff than they are interested in covering what's going on off the field. And that makes for dynamics of corruption that are different and at times easier to break into.
How has the doping in sports changed since you started reporting on it a couple decades ago?
When I started covering drugs in sports around 2006, and this is sort of the lead up to the Mitchell report and, questions about Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz and Sammy Sosa, that sort of era. And at that time, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, which is sort of the central player in this China doping story, they were seen as the highest standard of policing drugs in sports. They held themselves out as that. They were very transparent, and they were big critics of sports like baseball. They really went after baseball, and baseball was sort of the one that was seen as being behind and laying on the brakes and not wanting to dive into really exposing its own players. When I come back to the story, several months ago, WADA is a different entity, and the questions about it are whether this group, which is supposed to be ensuring that there's a level playing field in sports, that sports are clean, there's questions about whether they are doing their job. Are they laying on the brakes for athletes? Are they unwilling to go after players? And that's a big change from when the last time I covered this story.
To recap for the listener, 23 top-tier Chinese swimmers tested positive for a banned substance months before the Tokyo Olympics. The Chinese cleared them of doping, blaming a hamburger in a hotel kitchen. And I think I have this right when I say nobody knew it until your first story in April, right? So this is a cover-up?
Yeah, and there's another important part that you need to know, which is that just a day ago, we broke a story that there's a current member of the Chinese swimming team who's scheduled to race in a very important relay on Thursday, who tested positive in 2022 and was cleared last December of doping. And no one knew about this. It was not publicly announced. And they blamed hamburgers for that positive test. And there's a lot of questions about whether that's another example of the Chinese anti-doping authorities and the World Anti-Doping Agency not holding athletes to account. No one knew about this. No one knew that there was this swimmer who had an incredibly powerful steroid in her system as recently as 2022, who's in the, scheduled to be in the pool in Paris.
And what was the excuse given for that one, Mike? Because I'm curious, when WADA allows this to happen, it doesn't feel like they used to allow for, hey, it was just some hamburger meat, that's okay. It doesn't feels like they're being a lot more loose with their rulings here.
So, not to go too inside doping on this, but basically, if you're going to beat a doping allegation, you need to prove essentially how you were an unwitting victim of contamination. And in this case, the case that we're talking about here with this swimmer who's in Paris, they were never able to prove actually how she was contaminated with this hamburger. And they just said, we think it was meat because we think some meat in China may be tainted with this substance, but they were never able actually to show how it exactly happened. And that's not how anti-doping experts say the system's supposed to work. Essentially, you are responsible for what is in your system. And it is on you to prove that you did nothing wrong. And in this case, they were never able to prove that.
Do all Olympic athletes get held to the same standard in terms of how often they're tested? And if so, are other Olympians really upset about this whole scandal happening right during the Olympics?
So athletes have been fairly vocal about this. Former athletes like Michael Phelps testified before Congress about this. Katie Ledecky has spoken out about it. Other athletes have said they've lost confidence in the World Anti-Doping Agency to do its job. And that has created a lot of doubt amongst these athletes. Is everyone competing on the same playing field? Several months ago, in the midst of this reporting, I went to NBC and I said, can you be confident that when the fan sits down to watch the Olympics, that they'll be watching athletes competing on a level playing field? And NBC acknowledged receiving my email and still hasn't gotten back to me.
I want to share with the audience something behind the scenes here. Stugatz's fingers have gotten fatter. His voice has become less of a whisper. And so very often he's trying to talk to me privately, but some of the stuff leaks out over the air when he should just be talking to me. I will share with the audience that while Michael was talking, Stugatz actually said the following: maybe stop eating burgers. Hey, Dan, that's all I've got. You're so bad at it, Stugatz.
That was a good rip.
A little better.
You're
so bad at it.
Oh, that was good. It felt good. I mean,
I haven't been watching like every swimming event in the Olympics, admittedly, but I did hear NBC briefly mention this when one of the Chinese swimmers, I can't remember which one it was about to dive into the pool before an event. Do you think that NBC has covered this well, or are they kind of trying to keep the controversy away from viewers at home?
It's not from the competitions that I've seen when I've tuned in. It doesn't seem to be a central talking point of what's going on. And I'll be interested to see how they deal with it on Thursday night, where I believe 3 members of the Chinese relay team that are scheduled to compete have tested positive before and not been sanctioned for those positive tests. So that will be a sort of test of this, about how much NBC is willing to take this on and discuss this.
Mike, I'm curious what the reaction has been to the United States being very vocal about this, having congressional things going on. Like, what has been the reaction to the U.S. being so vocal about the Chinese failed tests?
So something extraordinary happened last week that it's really important to try and explain, and it's a little inside Olympic stuff, but basically, the World Anti-Doping Agency and the Olympic Committee are very concerned that there's an ongoing criminal investigation in the United States being done by the FBI and the Justice Department into these positive tests. And there was some question about whether that investigation and Congress threatening to cut WADA's funding and criticisms of WADA from American anti-doping authorities was going to jeopardize the 2034 bid for Salt Lake City to host the Winter Olympics. So coming into the announcement of that bid last week, there was, some angst amongst Americans that maybe they would, not give this bid to the United States. And what happened is that the state of Utah and the committee for Salt Lake City essentially cut a deal with the IOC, in which they basically said, we will agree to try and work to push back on these investigations and these efforts by the Americans to look into these doping allegations and basically condition that on the bid, giving the IOC the ability to take the bid away if Utah and Salt Lake City are not able to help them push back on these investigations. And that's just in the twists and turns of this story, that was certainly not something that I saw coming.
He is legitimately the only reporter ever to win 2 Pulitzer Prizes and also spend some time with Dontrell Willis and the Toledo Mudhens back in 2008. Before we let you go, and I urge you all, his book is Donald Trump versus the United States, Inside the Struggle to Stop a President. He does very good investigative work, and I urge you all to check out that work. Before we let you go, though, Michael, Trump is scheduled to be sentenced in the Stormy Daniels case on September 18th. That seems to be a pretty seismic moment. He seems to be running to stay out of prison. Do you have any idea what's going to happen there?
So trying to predict what's going to happen in anything between now and November is crazy. If you think about it, in the past month, what we've seen, we saw, a presidential candidate essentially implode before our eyes and then have to try out in front of the country about his own acuity and fail at that and then be pushed out by his own party. You've seen an assassination attempt on one of the candidates. You've seen the emergence of a entirely new candidate. The Supreme Court made a major ruling on some of Trump's actions in the midst of this. You have the delaying of that sentencing, which will happen in September. We're not even, I think we're 100 days out. Maybe we're a little more. So who knows? That case has sort of been the little engine that could, in the sense that it has had, I think, much more of a dramatic impact than people initially thought it was, considering all the criminal cases that were brought against Trump. I think there'll be a lot of pressure on the judge to do something. But at the same time, does the judge want to put Donald Trump behind bars as he's running for president? That would be something pretty extraordinary. And my guess is that he would have a chance to appeal that before that would happen. But who knows?
All right. There is the latest information, the dismount. He hit it just like Simone Biles. Who knows is the answer. Michael, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My life as I know it is about to drastically change forever. And the reason I say that, as many of you know, I'm going to be a father coming up in December to a baby girl, and it's crazy, and I can't believe it. And a lot of my life is going to change, but there's one thing in my life that's going to be constant. And since 1975, this original light beer has been a constant, a mainstay for the entire planet. And it's going to continue to be a mainstay for me. It's Miller Lite. They keep it simple. Undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. It's a light beer that actually tastes like beer. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. And it tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Dan, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. I will when my daughter's born with a tall, cold glass of Miller Lite. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
All right, I saw you guys practicing back there. You're cheating. You're cheating like the Chinese swimmers.
You guys got
I
a
saw
whole
you
bunch of practice
practicing.
runs in there.
He could have just said, who knows?
Sue,
right?
Sue had like 17 practice runs. Got a rip
Okay,
in.
but I want to now have a competition. Michael, you're welcome to be a part of it if you want to
Yes,
stick
you
around
wanna
and do a
judge
this.
paper.
Yes,
No, he's done. He's got work to do.
Michael!
He doesn't have time for our
Michael!
nonsense. He's busy. He's busy.
What is this, the Lost Boys?
Let's start with you, Tony. I want to have a competition here, a paper. We were all critics. We were all right there to criticize Stugatz, but we weren't in the arena doing our actual paper ripping. So, Tony, you start us off. Let's see who can do the best paper rip.
Dan, I think there's a couple schools of thought here, right? We've got vertical rip and we've got horizontal rip. So Stu went with a horizontal rip. We're gonna go with a vertical
Rookie
rip.
move.
Yeah.
Here we go. You ready?
Yep.
Ooh, that one was clean.
Almost too fast.
That was good. Now,
Too good, though.
No,
Too
well,
good.
hold on a second. Tony is proud of himself for a couple of reasons. That's a tough nominee to beat right off the bat. But he's proud of himself not only because the sound was excellent, he tore that damn nearly in half. Like,
Yeah,
it was
almost
just
perfectly straight.
Stugatz kept tearing like a corner piece of the paper. It was weird.
Yeah, my shoulder hurts. I mean,
Michael, where are you? Mike, where are you with this?
Michael!
Michael!
Fly with us, Michael! All right, so I got to stand out.
You got
That's
to,
a red bean.
You got to practice.
All right,
This is
here we
not
go.
fair.
Oh, I like it.
good.
I like it. A slow
I'm
tear
telling
at
you,
the beginning.
there is such a thing as too fast to tear.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you
Can
got
I go
way
next?
too fast.
All right, well, let's see who the consensus winner
Are you
is.
allowed? It's like a PK in soccer. Are you allowed to like stop and then go again? I don't know.
That's part of my strategy. Where's Wada with the rules?
But you only get one chance at it.
tap,
The
tap, tap,
one
tap.
total chance.
Sleeping at the steering wheel. I mean, ooh, that was good.
That was aggressive.
It was
Tony so
confident.
far.
Pulled away
right?
from the microphone, docks you a couple points.
Yeah.
Chris
All right, let me
Cody,
show
you
you
want to
guys
try
this.
this?
I mean,
Actual tearing.
Perforations
dealing
clean.
with rookies here. I mean, geez.
That is
Ooh.
fantastic.
That is a
That
nice
was-
pick.
That
might
is-
be the winner.
No, it was good pacing. Yeah,
Right
it was.
down the
It was
middle.
nice.
I could
yeah.
fall
Sounded
asleep
great.
to that.
You might have a career
over
in
and
the
over
I'm
pictures.
telling you. I mean,
Yeah.
this is my thing here.
Chris Cody really
Damn.
did tell us, hey, you guys are going too fast, and then did it slowly
Wow, he's
and
good. He's good.
confidently.
He's
Damn.
good. He's good.
The-
He's good.
Yeah, the form there.
Tempo.
Office services,
Yeah.
my mom's office.
The
10 years
pacing.
to the mic.
Yeah.
Oh my
Izzy,
God, your mom hired you for a job
A lot of
too?
ripping up
All my
papers there
family.
at the office.
Jesus,
What's
man,
happening
Get
over
your
there,
own
huh?
job. I mean,
We ready?
Yes, we are. Mike is still doing Lost Boys.
Michael. Oh,
Ooh.
Well, there was a lot going on. there.
Damn.
That was just a trying to be me. That's all I saw
not
there.
good pacing.
I
though.
doubled up, Chris.
a really
It's the only way I could do better is doubling up. You get a
Really
stronger.
complicated character work.
There's
for
two
your-
pieces of paper?
That's cheating.
Your page.
I've
there.
got three.
That's
I-
cheating.
Oh,
It's cheating.
that's-
It's cheating.
Okay, Mr. Iron Man, Mr. Strong Man, my bad. You
Is
rip
it-
a
is
phone
it-
book
Yeah.
next?
Is it cheating?
Takes me back to Power Team. Power Team.
Try to hold 5
Jesus
pencils.
Christ!
Are there still phone books?
You guys,
No, the Power Team destroyed all of them.
Love July.
you guys believe that 3 is cheating? You want me to do 1? You
Yeah.
think it's
No, you can do one for every soul
Level
you
playing
save.
field. I mean,
For every soul you claim in the kingdom of God.
all right. He's got 3.
That was very clean.
Pretty
That was
good.
good.
It was powerful.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's second place to Chris's.
Yeah,
really?
Izzy and Chris. Izzy had such a complicated character.
Congratulations, Chris Cody, on being our paper ripping champion. I did not know that.
Cody Olympics.
Yeah,
did
can you
not
do a
Talked a
horse
big
going
game and
through
he
the
delivered.
town?
I mean,
I did not know.
All right, it took you a while, but you got the music over.
I did not know that you had 10 years of experience, that you are a veteran paper ripper. Congratulations. It is your finest work as executive producer, a new era of the Dan Levitard Show with Chris Cody.
Go get an American flag. It'll make Dan really emotional.
I think, Dan, you are solidly bronze, so be careful how much you celebrate.
Right.
Greg is watching.
yeah.
I appreciate
What a
you
weird segment.
helping me be a bronze medal finisher.
Straight as I've ever been right there.
One of the stories from the Olympics, Dugats, that I have not gotten to is Coco Gauff, flag bearer, loses yesterday and has a 10-minute crying meltdown in the middle of the match, and afterward complains that this always happens to her at the French Open and in Paris, where I thought we'd eliminated, sort of because of the technology, the ability to complain too much as a tennis player about whether something was in or out. And I'm certainly familiar with Jimmy Connors and Kyrgios and John McEnroe.
And Serena Williams.
Serena
I mean,
Williams,
yeah.
yes. Sharapova had a lot of complaining. Martina Hingis did a lot of complaining. But 10 minutes of actual tears and a meltdown in front of an audience while you're losing will get somebody called a crybaby if, in this sport and beyond this sport. What was the group's take on a flag bearer losing and getting so upset that she spent 10 minutes complaining about it, delaying the action?
Well, I think Coco's main objection, to be clear, was that the official called a ball out before she struck it, and it's super distracting that way, and they don't have the same kind of technology that they do on her tour. So, yeah, and I was watching her match solo without Gold Zone to have someone explain to me what was happening, but the microphones were such that I kind of picked up on what her objections were, and it was a legitimate 10-minute gripe that she had with tears with it. And I gotta tell you, I was watching it with my daughter. I'm gonna sound like such a boomer here. I'm gonna sound so old, but I do consider Coco a role model for my daughter Juliet, because we went to the Miami Open. We caught an autographed ball from Coco. She recognizes Coco. We were watching this match because Coco was on it. And there was a moment in time there where this thing dragged for like 6 minutes. I'm like, this is not great. How do I explain what's going on there? She's crying. Thankfully, I navigated the situation where I'm not prepared to have that conversation. We're not there in this live sports viewing experiment.
She's 4.
She's 4
Because
years
she's
old.
4, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe if she were like 8 or 10, that's an opportunity to explain why Coco is doing this. But it went on like way too long. And to me, it was clear because I didn't have commentators telling me exactly what was happening. At a certain point, it ceased being about the actual objection that she took. And it was more about what I felt like frustration with the match, especially when she started invoking, and she didn't just say it after the match, she said it in that moment, this always happens to me. And she was just, at a certain point, like the gamesmanship of it was, are you trying to freeze out your opponent here? Like what? Let's keep this moving. You know that they can't do anything about it. Why are we staying here? This is, not only are we losing, which is disappointing, but you have other competitions where you can medal in, but we're staying here in ways that are uncomfortable, and it was a bad look all around.
I know this isn't where you want to go with this, but I'm just curious if she was trying to freeze out her opponent, how mad would you be? Because that happens in tennis.
Yeah, I started to turn on it because initially I'm like, yeah, this is BS. You shouldn't be doing that. And you have your gripe, and you cross a threshold of like, okay, this is uncomfortable. This is going a little too long. And at a certain point, you wonder like, okay, you're not going to change things. What are you trying to do here? And I'm like, are you trying to freeze your opponent out right now? Is that how you think you can go about winning the match? Like, it lasted for so long that you're starting to wonder someone's motives.
She says it happens to her all the time. It just happened when she faced Emma Navarro at the French Open. It basically happened the entire match. She's having meltdowns the entire match.
Yeah, Coco is not special in that she is wronged by an official. That happens all the time. And what separates people from knowing about it is generally how outsized their reaction is. Serena did this occasionally. One time Serena had a very famous one, and it became the national discourse around her because I understand when you talk about a famous black athlete, the conversations around things are going to be a little different. And I'm not crazy about how I come off as literally a father trying to wonder, is this the right role model in this moment for my daughter? It was beyond that. I think you can say in a vacuum, bad look. We shouldn't be doing that for 10 minutes.
I don't think it's really like the role model conversation to me that's a tough thing for me to get on board with. Like, she's 20 years old. She's competing at the Olympics. She has worked very hard to get there. She's, the youngest flag bearer in history. So obviously she's feeling a lot of pressure to compete. And this call was something that looked very unfair. The one ref called it out, and the other one said it was in after she was already in her swinging motion. And so the opponent got the point, and she was justifiably very, very angry about it. And so this is part of tennis, is like appealing to the umpire or the ref and saying like, you're wrong. There isn't technology at this event that can overrule it, that she can challenge. And so I think this is just a lesson for anyone watching it in like how badly these athletes want to win and how intense they are about competing. And did her opponent say that she felt like she was being frozen out after the match? Because if that's the case, I didn't see that.
No,
and I think that's a separate conversation too.
No, I'm speaking like just as someone that's watching tennis. I'm like, is that what you're going for here? Because it's going on for so long. Like, I agreed with Coco's initial gripe, but it's like any argument with an outsized reaction. I've been right in arguments that I've had, especially when I was younger. I ceased being right when my emotion got the best of me, and that's all that people remember from it.
I think where I'm like losing you is that like I don't think that I can say whether or not this was an outsized reaction. This feels like a very appropriate reaction given how intense the moment was. And so I genuinely like feel like bad. Like I feel empathy for her that this really like screwed up her match so much because it was unfair.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry, but there are just different thresholds for this. I was with Jess for a good 3 minutes there on Coco's side.
But the last 7 minutes.
And then at a certain point, we're in redundancy town. And I believe it comes off to me like this is not really about that one moment. It's about everything that surrounds it, which is you give a wider berth there. But this was so prolonged, and it was such a bad look. And at a certain point, you're telling Coco, like, as a fan of Coco, hey, lock it in. This is not your only opportunity for a medal here. You got mixed doubles later on. Like, this could really undo everything. And watching that mixed doubles match that she had with Fritz, I kind of felt like she was still trying to deal with that because her emotion was getting the better of her there, and you can't separate the two things.
I think we can say fairly that Coco had a bad day. Right? She probably down the road will regret the way she handled that the same way, not that it's the same extent, but the same way Serena, I'm sure, regrets, some of her exchanges, especially at that U.S. Open. But
she had to apologize to the winner, by the way.
She did, yes. The thing, Mike, that you lost me there was just when you're trying to sort of keep it from your daughter or like she's a role model. And I think there's a couple things that Jess said that stood out to me is one, she's 20. She is 20 years old, and if your daughter's going to choose or you're going to allow this 20-year-old to be your daughter's role model, it has to come with the idea that she's not fully formed, she's not perfect, and I know you can't have these conversations with a 4-year-old, but did your 4-year-old watch Inside Out or Inside Out 2 where you can't just focus on the good emotions?
Yeah, but Izzy, I'm far more comfortable walking through the emotions of a child through the prism of Pixar than I am through Coco Gauff. And while you are making
it's more realistic.
Like we're adults.
This is sports. This is a live sporting event. Like you can't control what your daughter's going to see.
I appreciate you guys explaining sports to me. Allow me to explain what a father feels when experiencing something with his 4-year-old daughter, because I feel like I have a little bit more experience here in this specific department. And what I'm telling you is my daughter was noticing what was going on, and my initial parental instinct was to shield her from this and distract because I didn't want her to see Coco in that light. I, as a father, you can make of it what you will, wasn't prepared in that moment to have this conversation with someone that has seemingly, in her eyes, done no wrong. I'd like to protect Coco's innocence in the eyes of my child, and I'd like to keep my daughter in this lane. And the fact that it lasted for 10 minutes just meant Daddy had to spin more plates, and I wasn't appreciative of that.
I'd like to know what you were doing to get her to distract her from watching.
We played with slime, like
tickled her, busted out tickling.
I feel a lot like my sister, I did when my sister told me, "Hey, when you raise an 18-year-old, you can say something," and I was pretty hurt by that. But I will say that I think in those scenarios, if you don't mind me suggesting it, I think you can let her lead the way. If she has questions, if she wants to find out, hey, why is Coco acting that way? What's going on? Why is she crying? I think you can lead her into a decent conversation because, again, the idea that nobody's perfect is something that you should probably get across pretty young. I'm not saying you, in shielding her, were wrong.
You know what
in
she
any
told
way.
me earlier that morning?
Oh, boy.
Daddy, what happens when you get sucked out of your window by a twister? So, like, she's got a lot of questions. Some of them absurd, some of them more rooted in reality. But, you kind of pick and choose. And around minute 8 of playing with slime and doing the distraction thing, and my wife's in the room too, I'm kind of like, all right, Coco, let's get it going here.
She was making your day more difficult.
Otherwise, you got to slide down the list of personal Cocos in our household.
Yeah, but Coco Gauff's not thinking about your daughter when she's playing tennis. She's thinking about her match and what she feels is unfair or really like crappy treatment constantly throughout her time playing sports. Emotion is part of sports. If a woman being emotional while she's playing a sport is something that you don't think that your daughter can handle, then you should not be watching sports with her. It feels pretty simple.
Flag on the play. Yeah. No, terrible point. Point. Not a fan of that point. And also, it's convenient to cherry pick when and where Coco Gauff is cognizant of being a role model, because there are plenty of times, including the time she hit an autographed ball to my daughter, where she wanted to be that. I understand. It's impossible to adhere to that standard the entire time. However, it is not without the occasional criticism. And to do that for 10 minutes, I think pretty universally, even though there's no shortage of people making excuses for her, was a bad look.
don't think it's unfair to say that, again, she had a bad day. Excuse me. Even if she is somebody who sees herself as a role model at most times, will have a bad spot, will have an issue with tone, perhaps, when she doesn't expect it. And all of these things are lessons to be learned, and to just shield the, again, I'm not saying it was the wrong move. I'm
Let
just
your
saying
daughter
there are
grow up,
alternative
Mike.
moves
That's what Izzy is
to
saying.
shield her
I mean-
away. It's one option, but it's not the only option, and it certainly shouldn't be put on Coco, who is, again, 20 years old, and think about how you had everything figured out.
I think
at 20 years
separating the
old.
4-year-old from this, the 4-year-old in that instance displayed a bit more maturity than Coco. Is displaying in that moment displayed more maturity than I'm having right now, because I'm digging my heels a little bit in. But Coco, for behavior of a 20-year-old professional tennis player, was out of line.
Right.
It was an outsized reaction. All right. If you want to view it through the prism of preparing my 4-year-old daughter for a life of hardships, cool. That's cool with you. I'm saying in a vacuum, tighten it up.
We've got a penalty, 5 minutes. Major asshole.
Out.
Well done.
Room full of childless people.
Good call.
Out.
I shouldn't be allowed to vote either, according to some people. So I guess now I'll add that to the list. Can't vote.
You guys are really missing.
Can't talk about tennis.
What's
What
at
else?
play here? Coco made Mike's day more difficult, and that's really why
right,
he's upset. He's lashing out at her.
Well, I will.
Because what is Coco supposed to do, Dan? Like 5 minutes into her crying, being emotional, like check her watch and say, "Hey, 5 minutes. How is Mike going to explain this to his daughter?"
This is. I want to talk about the whole role model part of this, because the only one who's gotten away with it famously is Charles Barkley, who, because this conversation has been in sports for a long time, did commercials. I am not a role model. And I have said, as someone who is childless, my entire life, when I hear some fan complaining about some athlete misbehavior with, I need a better role model from my athlete, I always say some version of, if that child is looking for his or her role model anywhere beyond that dinner table, they're looking in the wrong place. However, I don't have a child. I do believe your way of looking at the world and sports changes instantaneously the moment you're trying to protect a 4-year-old from everything in the world that can contaminate a 4-year-old. I do believe that parenting ends up being something that I'm always getting into arguments with fans about, because they do expect their athletes to behave to a higher standard of humanity than the rest of us.
But most of them do almost all of the time.
No, but you protect your kids from the important stuff. Like, I'm sorry,
But
it's
this
Coco
is what
Gauff
parents.
having a temper tantrum.
Wait a minute, Stugatz. Parents decide what the important stuff
I
is
was a parent
for their kids, but you
Still
decide
are.
for you.
I still am. That's a good
That's
point.
right.
But
You
it's
still
not
are.
really. I mean, they don't listen to me anymore.
But you decide for you. You don't decide for everybody. There's not a uniform handbook on this one.
But you would agree shielding your daughter or your son from Coco Gauff's temper tantrum is an odd thing to shield them from.
I would argue that a
Like-
child could be harmed more watching our show yesterday, where
Right.
we showed that guy bashing in the mirror of a car.
I would argue
that was
a
more
4-year-old
harmful.
can relate, can see a person like Coco breaking down.
She's
and
acting like
saying,
me.
Wow,
Right.
that must really hurt. Like that emotion, that thought can absolutely go through a 4-year-old child's head.
I would say, though,
And if not, she probably won't remember any of this.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's
right.
part of it. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Batard Show. Do you remember anything from being 4 years old?
Isn't the larger issue here that Coco Gauff says this continues to happen to her? She can't control it. Like, it seems like emotionally she's going through something here. Whether it's the pressure, anxiety, I don't know what it is, but this has now happened on 2 massive stages in the last 3 or 4 months.
I would say a 10-minute crying fit is not a whole lot that we haven't seen that one a whole lot in sports. We've seen it actually in tennis, because John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors routinely did things like this without the tears, but just temper tantrums.
Nick Kyrgios. We haven't spent this much time talking about
No.
Nick Kyrgios, and he's made a career out of
But
this.
Izzy, I am telling you, the last time I saw Coco Gauff play before the Olympics was at the French Open. And the entire match, he was doing this against Emma Navarro. And I'm sitting there watching the match, and I'm like, is everything okay with her? like she was freaking out. She was struggling on the court. She was not happy.
Well, the larger thing here, right, is whether it's Jennifer Capriati or any of the young people that this sport devours, because before they're fully formed, we throw them into a lonely professional circuit of you better grow up fast. I would say that generally speaking, it's harder for the tennis player who's 20 to be as balanced life-wise as the rest of us, just because of the demand of being that excellent in that sport.
Individual sport specifically.
I think we should maybe take a step back and think about Coco Gauff and what we know about her. I'm not the biggest tennis fan in the world, but I do follow her. She seems like a perfectly nice, reasonable, good person and a good competitor. And maybe think about what she's saying and try to understand where she's coming from and why this moment had her so upset, and try to maybe just find some empathy for that and how frustrating a position she must have been in before we start saying she's a bad role model for my kids. That's where I'm coming from. We've never been in that position. We've never been competing in the Olympics before in an individual sport with all the pressure of the world on our shoulders, in a sport where she feels like she's been continually cheated out of points because of bad calls like this.
When I'm going to think of Coco Gauff, I'm going to think of that U.S. Open last year well before I think of this. And the role model aspect of that is, look, this 19-year-old just won this major, celebrating with her family in the middle of New York, and it's amazing. That is way more of a lesson or something that you can gain from as a child or a father, whatever, than that one bad moment. And yes, you might have had more than one, but let's be honest, if we're judging her based on what she's done well versus what she's done wrong,
she's had more good moments.
Scales are pretty heavy.
It was Wimbledon. I apologize. I keep saying the French Open. That's where she had the meltdown again. But there was a whole story written about it afterwards where people were concerned about the well-being of Coco Gauff. Imagine the pressure trying to be the next Serena Williams. I mean, it's crazy.
Agreed. I would say that we spend a lot of time, though, here parsing, as we did earlier. We did this just yesterday with Greg Cody. Is the celebration of this bronze medal team the right degree of celebration? We're doing it now with, is 3 minutes right? Is 10 minutes too much? Where do I have to put it before it becomes too much? What we do this one all the time in sports on that emotional outburst. Here's how I unemotionally would have done it, even though I'm not as good as these people are, and I don't care as much as these people are at what they do.
It's incredible to me that in the same show where we're talking about Simone Biles' redemption tour after she had to back out of the Olympics 3 years ago because of all the pressure she was under and how much anxiety she had participating in her sport, we are now doing the role model thing with Coco Gauff, who is a 20-year-old competing in the Olympics. Does anyone not see the irony here?
And I'm not sure where we're getting 10 minutes from.
I don't know either. Did anyone time how long she was arguing with the ref?
I read in the article, I read that it was 10 minutes, and I read that she said it's not the reason that she lost the match either. So I was not timing it.
I like a quick objection. You let the umpire know, hey, it was a bad call. You did me wrong there, and then you get back. Just move on. Keep it moving. Maybe under a minute. But once you reach the threshold, Dan, and this is it for me at least, where it seems like you can't control your emotions out there on national TV on a massive stage, that's a reason to be concerned. It is. It's too much.
Okay, but Travis Kelce, bumped into his coach during the Super Bowl because of the size of the pressure because he couldn't control his emotions.
Yeah, it helped, though, right? It got them all fired up. They ended up winning
that's
the game.
an interesting way of looking at it. Okay. It worked. Okay.
I'm seeing an article about it where it says it took almost 5 minutes for play to resume. So
okay.
More reasonable.
Only 5 minutes.
All right.
That's what we're upset about.
There it is.
Below the line.
Okay, thank you.
Just barely.
Who was that?
What character was that?
The judger of tennis.
The judger of tennis.
Tony, do you have some contributions to our entire Olympic experience today? Can we get a top 5 list from you on
We absolutely can,
general Olympic observations?
Oh, we're doing
We
it with
head
the
to
Olympic
Beijing.
music. Wow. Excellent. All right.
Any OLIs here? Or
No
we just
lies.
go-
We're getting straight to it. Number 5.
Hold on, Tony. Before you get to it, Tony's top 5 is brought to you by Liquid IV. If hydrating were an Olympic sport, you would win gold. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code DAN at checkout.
He looks extra hydrated today.
So these are the top 5 things that I've seen over the last couple days and the weekend of the Olympic Games. Things that, to me, I felt were worthy of being in the top 5. So it may not be the best moments. It may not be the most incredible things.
It's your list.
It's a top 5
Don't
of top
explain
5
it, Tony.
moments.
Are you apologizing for your...
On the
your-
front
I'm just
end.
giving context.
Weird,
I'm just giving context. Number 5, a bee landing on an archer and ruining her shot.
I saw that.
That's unfortunate.
You know, I
man.
mean, it was, she drew back the bow, right? And as you're holding back that bow, it's a lot of pressure that you got to hold to keep that arrow straight. All of a sudden, as she's about to let it go, a bee lands right on her finger, her guide finger that's looking at the target.
That could have gone horrifically if she just like got distracted and all of a sudden she's like aiming at like the stand where all the crowd is.
Yeah, that would be bad. Number 4, we are going to the 10-meter air pistol, where Yiji Kim has the most aura in the Olympics. I don't know if you guys have seen Yiji Kim. Okay, look at her with the air pistol.
Oh man!
If you get a front-facing shot of it, she's got like a scope on one eye, but then also something else covering her other eye. This looks like a James Bond or like
a great
Indiana
movie
Jones villain.
assassin.
Yes.
Great
Yeah.
movie assassin.
You don't know
The way
if she's good or evil.
She's on Bullet Train, like about to shoot.
Did you have the archer launching arrows into the stand?
I'm saying if you have a bee, if I was about to shoot an arrow and a bee land, I'd be like, oh!
It is unfortunate, right? You're spending 4 years to have that moment. You're waiting 4 years to get that
Specific moment.
and a bee shows up and just...
It was a big-ass bee, too. Might have been a
was.
wasp, to be honest. We don't know. Number 3, Simone Biles and them girls getting team gold.
Much different than the other two.
You know, again, my top 5.
Number 2.
Number 2, Cuba with an excellent 26 for 35 on offense, all blocked out by Brazil. Ayala and Diaz, the only undefeated Cuban beach volleyball players in the Olympics in a stacked Pool D. Ayala looks like Dikembe Mutombo at the net. Dude is a beast. Beat the men's USA team and then beat Brazil.
It's a lot of this list takes up a lot of space on your paper, doesn't it? It's like a lot of headlines.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Tighten it up.
You're mentioning beach volleyball. Olympic camera operators have been told to avoid sexist angles on the beach
The issue
volleyball.
is,
Sexist or
yeah,
sexy?
no. So here's
Well,
both.
sexist angle.
The issue is, Dan, when you're getting a certain angle of them going to serve, you can see the gamesmanship within the game where women or men are letting people know what person to hit it to with angles and signs behind their back. And what do? You're trying to see the gamesmanship of the game. It also happens to be by a butt. Like, okay, what are you going to do?
It's a fair point.
Am I wrong there? Hold on. Am I wrong there?
I'm not talking. No.
Oh, okay.
Misrepresenting. I actually, no one even really explained what a sexist angle was in that whole segment.
Sangle.
No one is saying that showing an angle of the play is sexist. The whole point of like the sexist thing was showing the difference between how they show men versus women, and
Yeah.
that like women statistically get more close-ups and less gameplay and stuff like that.
Listen, I played volleyball a lot of my life. I don't know what those damn signals mean. I don't know. So don't show them to me. I don't care.
I was of the opinion that
Team player.
all beach volleyball, male, female, that all of it was meant, at least in part, for the for some people to show up and just ogle. I thought
Nah, the
all
guys
of
wear
it.
shirts
yeah, that
now.
says more
Read.
about you than
I
anyone
just
else.
thought that's what was beach volley. I thought it was beach volleyball. I thought it was everybody,
Used
all
to-
sexes.
The 90s over on Miami Beach. That's what you were doing. I like that. Number 1, Ilona Maher and the women's rugby team.
Oh, yeah.
Not only, this is a little twofer on number 1. Ilona Maher with her first carry a couple of games ago against Japan, where they were down 7-0. They scored 36 unanswered. Ilona Maher was like Derrick Henry throwing a Japanese lady like 16 yards with a
that was
stiff
the
arm.
end.
It was insane. And then she ran 95 meters or whatever for a touchdown, which I don't know if it's called a touchdown or not, by the way.
But they
A
do
tutty.
touch the ball down.
It is not.
So it's
It
more
is, I don't
touchdown
think
than
in
the other
rugby
thing.
It's a
called
try.
A touchdown.
Okay, it's a touchdown to me.
Look at you.
America Jack.
Just
and then
told me.
obviously the bronze medal game, Alex Cedric with a 95 meter, I don't know how to, 95 meter touchdown at the buzzer, at the death, to give USA its first medal stand ever in rugby.
Jessica, what portion of this segment has you
All
with
of
your,
it.
with your head in your hands?
Not
Which
her. Not her top 5.
It's not your. It's true. It's
You
not
want
her
one?
top
Do your
5.
own.
You mentioned Derrick Henry, which allows me to segue seamlessly to Titans training camp, even though he is no longer a Tennessee Titan.
What an odd place to transition to.
Yeah, but
Didn't
look,
see that one coming.
You didn't, but here's some video and some audio of who is the player. Is it Simmons, the tight end?
Defensive end Jeffrey Simmons for the Titans. This is at training camps all over. You're seeing radio shows going out to camp, and this radio show is about to interview someone else on the Titans, but then one of the hosts gets confronted by Jeffrey Simmons about something he had said online.
Well, Jeff, you want to sit down? We can talk whenever you want to talk. Jeff, we'll deal with that later. Roger McCreary sitting down with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Jeff, I mean, we're on the air right now.
You do a lot of talking on social media.
I'm right here, Jeff. We can talk anytime you want to. Unbelievable.
We got to make that happen.
Well, we'll deal with that later on. Roger McCreary sitting down with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Jeff, if you want to sit down and talk about this, we can talk about this.
I'm telling you, stop talking on social media. Talk to me.
I'm talking to you right here. Jeff, we tried to talk to you last week. I'm being rude to Roger. We'll deal with you later. Roger, what's going on?
It's good. I'm doing good out here. I'm doing good.
Awkward for Roger.
That is a great Southern radio voice.
Great voice.
I mean,
Wow.
radio. Yes.
We all had the same reaction. I want to listen to that guy's show, even if all his points are bad.
104.5.
The bleep that you heard 3 times was the P word. He was getting a little aggressive with him.
And it was just confronting him, and the reporter came right back at him with, we can talk right now if you want.
Classic Stu Gatz move. Come on the show right now.
We've
We'll
tried
talk
to
right
get you
here.
on. Yeah, we've been trying for weeks.
That's right. It's time for Against the Spread. And it's brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. Stay tuned because you're going to hear all about DraftKings throughout the show that just got finished. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Izzy, you don't do this a lot with us. Kick us off.
Not only do I not do this a lot, I've never done this, and I am trying to find the line on tomorrow's Marlins-Braves game, and I cannot. But I'm taking the Braves, whatever that number is.
I'm telling you, the Braves will be minus 1.5.
Yeah. Then we will take that against the spread.
Tony, what do we got?
Yankees played one into the extra innings last night. Phillies, good team. The game's about to start in a little bit. I'm going to give the Yankees with Nestor Cortez on the bump. Minus 1.5. I'm going to take the Yankees here. See if they can get back
Against the
spread.
Tony, how much is your head spinning this week while having to edit and be part of the
Yeah, it hasn't been great.
show? I look at you now, people watching on video, Tony has 14 set of headphones
I have
on.
14 set of headphones. I need to be sent out to somewhere to do a top 5 from somewhere, but then also nobody can edit the show, so I can't leave and do that, so I got to stay here and do this.
And you got to dress cool.
Jess, who do you got?
Tomorrow, USA women versus Belgium in basketball. Belgium is pretty good, but their star guard is hurt, and the spread is 22.5. I'm going to take the USA to cover that.
Against the spread. Way to go higher on that one, Chris. What a game that is. Hey, what do you guys think of me trying to dress like Dan today? I know this is not for the post-game show
I couldn't
audience
tell if it was like a
necessarily.
Jeremy or a Dan impression.
Was it a legit thing that you did?
Well, so I had got these clothes, and as I was trying them on, whenever I was trying them on, it was definitely after the Dan, change in wardrobes and stuff.
You had them first. You're like, I did not follow Dan on this.
Oh,
He
no,
followed
I
me.
definitely looked at this and said, this is a Dan outfit, but I'm wearing it better. And so I got it, and I didn't have any plan on wearing it here, but there was about a 30% chance that we would be wearing the exact same thing. And that excited me for about half an hour while I was in makeup.
Speaking of outfits, I saw that we played the clip last week of Deshaun Foster at Big Ten Media Days saying his opening statement and how kind of awkward it was when he said UCLA.
Yep.
We're in LA. Chris,
You got USC there.
you wanna hit it?
We're in LA. It's us and USC.
I saw that today he wore a shirt to practice that said, "We're in LA." And I love that. Double down on it. Laugh at yourself.
Did
We're
he
all
ever
having
explain?
fun.
Did he just joke?
We
Like
all
did he have
know,
nothing
right?
to say?
It was just, I think we've all been there. He got in front of the lights and he just had a moment of just, I lost my train of thought.
I think it's interesting how every coach has their own like opening statement philosophy. Some coaches are like, all right, questions. Some coaches are like, let me talk for 30 minutes about our punter. And then some coaches do an in between. And I guess maybe before he went on stage, he didn't know yet how he wanted to play that.
What was the most memorable one before this one? Was it Nick Sirianni? I remember he had one that people were like, that was odd.
Well, yeah, he was describing the flower and how it grows and trying to make some crazy metaphor, and it just wasn't working.
Adam Gase, that was a weird one.
Adam Gase with the taco eyes.
No one did better. Wow, I forgot about the Adam Gase taco
But
eyes.
nothing was as awkward as, like you're just sitting there saying, say something. Anything. Say the colors of your team. It doesn't matter. Just say anything.
Was kneecaps being eaten an introductory press conference thing for
I
Campbell?
think it was,
I believe it was.
And everyone laughed at him. And I guess the joke's on us.
It was early on.
Question
It might have been a training camp, but it
Is
was
the joke on us?
He was eating kneecaps at some point.
That has never, ever happened to me. Like, I've been...
Never eaten a kneecap?
I haven't either.
No. I've never been mid-thought.
Boil a kneecap?
Well, he's vegan now.
Yeah, no. Is it like a broccoli kneecap or something? I've never been mid-thought and just lost it all. I've been mid-thought and had to like stumble enough to where I'm like, all right, around the horn, guys, we got to redo this. And that's really annoying when you're like a third of the way or 3/4 of the way through a segment and you screw up and you got to redo it. That's annoying. But just drawing a blank when talking about your own team, like just say your quarterback's name or something.
I want to replay me losing my train of thought many years ago when talking about Tyron Smith's hands. This was like early on in my time with the show. I don't even remember the context.
I'll stop editing to listen to this.
It was funniest thing from the sports weekend. And during this time, I was so afraid to talk that I'm just like, give me the shortest thing. Like whatever it is, it's like, this guy fell. That's short. I can say that without stumbling. So I decided my funniest thing was Tyron Smith holding a football. That's it. It was just a football, looked really small in his hands, and this is me delivering it.
Chris, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
I got Tyron Smith, I'm sorry. They were talking back here, so they were making me a little nervous.
Don't make excuses.
Tyron Smith holding a football in his hands. It looked so small.
Wow, you limped in with that effort, Chris.
I got rattled right before I went on air, I'm just going to turn my mic off
all
now.
right, yeah, you should. Good idea.
Sound up.
Yeah.
I mean, your last two appearances at the microphone have just been a disaster, man.
Chris, man.
Like, I don't. What was that?
I'm just going to deflect, so I'm just going to stop talking.
All right. Well, what's the when did a football look small in this human being's hands?
They played NBC showed a graphic of Tyron Smith, and he was like sandwiching a football in his hands, and I'm telling you, it is magical.
Okay. I mean, yes,
God.
got a great offensive
It is
line.
magical there, I guess.
So nervous. You can hear the
voice is
youth
so
and nerves in
young.
your
I'm
voice.
telling you, that is when I was afraid to say anything.
Even the second time,
Are
you
you
were
less afraid
midway
now?
through
I am.
Tyron, and you weren't sure if that was the right word. Oh, my God.
Baby.
Don't make excuses.
Tyron Smith holding a football in his hands. It looked so small.
God.